And a new year, a new Congress fast approaching, President Trump issues another shutdown threat. This time, the warning is that he may seal off the entire southern border with Mexico and insisting the federal government will not reopen until he gets his billions in wall funding. Day 7 of the partial shutdown, and neither side is giving ground. White House Press Secretary Sarah Sanders telling CNN the president has been in the office for the past several hours and making calls all morning. But it seems much more of his attention has been on his Twitter feed. CNN's Jessica Dean joins me now from the White House. Jessica, we learned today that the president will stay in Washington through New Year's instead of going to his Mar-a-Lago club in Florida. But that does not signal that there's necessarily a breakthrough in it, right?
Right. I mean, it's certainly that's the case and how it appears right now, Dana. Of course, we're going to see how things unfold over the next several days. But the president was supposed to spend Christmas at Mar-a-Lago and New Year's. They hold a big New Year's party there. He was planning to attend, but Democrats and Republicans remain very far apart on these negotiations. Now we know that President Trump will be spending New Year's here as this shutdown drags on.
As rain poured on Washington Friday, President Trump unleashed a tweet storm threatening to close the southern border with Mexico. The president writing, the United States loses so much money on trade with Mexico under NAFTA, over $75 billion a year, that he would consider closing the southern border, quote, a profit-making operation, repeating either we build, finish the wall, or we close the border. The tweets coming as the partial government shutdown enters its 7th day. The White House has found its strategy. Blame Nancy Pelosi.
This all comes down to Mrs. Pelosi's speakership. She does not have the votes, and if she cuts a deal with the president of any sort before her election on January 3rd, she's at risk of losing her speakership. So we're in this for the long haul. Nancy Pelosi, in fairness, does not have the votes for the speakership yet. She cannot be seen by her party as being weak on negotiating with Donald Trump.
But Pelosi likely does have the votes and is expected to become Speaker when the new House convenes on January 3rd. Her spokesperson issued a statement on Thursday saying in part, quote, Democrats have offered Republicans 3 options to reopen the government that include funding for strong, sensible, and effective border security, but not the president's immoral, ineffective, and expensive wall. Another part of the White House strategy, keep President Trump in Washington.
We actually talked about it with him late last night. The president's been here, by the way, all weekend, all Christmas. He's staying in Washington, D.C. over New Year's. He's canceled his plans for Christmas. Now he's canceled his plans for New Year's.
The First Lady returned to Florida to spend New Year's with their son at Mar-a-Lago, leaving the president alone in the White House, as he tweeted on Christmas Eve.
And we do know that the president has been here having meetings, making phone calls in the Oval Office, Dana, but again, still no movement from the White House on the partial government shutdown. Nothing moving forward at this point.
Sure doesn't look that way. Jessica, thanks so much for that report. Here with my panel, happy Friday, everybody. Bill Kristol, do you think shutting the southern border is a real possibility, or is this just Twitter talk?
Just Twitter talk, I think. But the big thing that's happened in the last couple of months, I think, is that things that we dismissed as just talk, and that at the end of the day, the president didn't follow through on, he started to follow through on. Syria being the most obvious example. You know, he's said for months, 2 years, all of his presidency, we have troops too many places, we need to end these wars. And then various people, H.R. McMaster, Jim Mattis, John Kelly, were able to sort of stop him from doing something rash. He's moved from speaking rashly to acting rashly. So I would normally say, of course, he's not really going to close the southern border, but who knows what stunt he'll pull.
And those 3 people you just named are gone.
Right, and who knows what stunt he'll pull next week to try to seize the political initiative on the border or something ridiculous like that.
What do you think, Alice?
I think what's shocking to me is, look, I voted for this president, but I didn't vote for him on thinking that Mexico was going to pay for this wall. All the Republicans out there that did vote for him, they have to be scratching their heads right now. They have to be going, what happened to the art of the deal maker? Look, he's had several opportunities to make this right, and he didn't follow through. Mexico is supposed to pay for this wall. They didn't pay for it. He said originally had a DACA deal on the table. He didn't make a deal on that. And he pledged wanting to get $5 billion, Democrats 1.3. I was expecting him to come in the middle. So he's had several opportunities to make this thing work. And if I was a Republican, I would certainly be frustrated. And now the talk about closing the border, and now he's threatening The caravan is coming back in. It doesn't make sense. I had confidence that the deal maker was going to make a deal on this. It doesn't seem to be happening.
You voted for him on a deal. A lot of his base voted for him on disrupting and staying the course. And you mentioned the caravan. This is what he said today in this tweet. Word is that a new caravan is forming in Honduras, and they're doing nothing about it. We have seen this movie before, leading up to the election. Then he stopped talking about it. This is a big flashing sign saying, base, stay with me, right?
Absolutely, but I think if we remember correctly, it didn't really work in the midterm elections either. That the immigration and the scare tactics at the border, the president saying that these migrants are coming into the country, we have to stop them, that didn't work. Largely the American people rebuffed that message, and they have now they will be sending Democrats to the House and in control of the House of Representatives come January 3rd. I remember when the president did shut down a piece of the border. He shut down the busiest port of entry between the United States and Mexico earlier this year. Matter of fact, it was in November. It seems like it was so long ago. So I don't think Donald Trump these are empty or idle threats here. What needs to happen, though, is folks do not need to kowtow to the president's temper tantrum. That's exactly what this is. There are 3 deals on the table. The Senate passed. There's something that passed in the Senate the Democrats could take up. Now, the question becomes, will Mitch McConnell keep his word, so on and so forth. But there are tangible things on the table here that can happen if we want to get the government reopened.
One of the things that could be on the table is something that the Washington Post editorial page talked about, and here's what it is. Democrats should let him have funding for the wall in return for a permanent fix to the immigration status of the Dreamers, people brought to this country as children without authorization, but who have been living otherwise lawful and productive American lives since then. This would be a grand bargain that would give both sides something to brag about. This is something that has been on the table in the past. It fell apart. People like Lindsey Graham on the Republican side, Tim Kaine on the Democratic side have said in the past, maybe this is something we can do, but the leadership has so far said, not now. What do you think?
I mean, the president cannot be counted on for any type of deal. I mean, he had this before. He rebuffed it. This is what I believe Democrats must do. They must hold strong on this.
No deal on Dreamers.
No, we need a deal on Dreamers. Not only do we need a deal on Dreamers, but we need real immigration reform. The Congress continues, and this president included, to continue to kick that down the road. It's not going away. We have to deal with it. But dealing with it with the shadow of this wall is really no way to deal with it. Let's do the things that are necessary to protect our borders, protect them holistically, but not just based on the wall so that the president will have red meat to throw to his base. And then furthermore, the attacks on poorer nations like Guatemala. I mean, I hope the American people understand that only about 1% of our budget is given to that kind of aid to other countries who are in need and are impoverished. And that is no answer, especially given the deaths that have just happened, at our border of young children. We should put ourselves in their position too, even if we don't agree with it.
And you talk about Trump's base. I think there's another key point in this op-ed, and I think this putting a little onus on the Democrats in this. They talk about there's really not a difference on the policy here. Both Republicans and Democrats do want to secure the border, and Democrats have been fine with a secure fence in the past in 2006. But the fact that they don't want this because this is Trump's wall, this is base-pleasing polarization, as they talk about in this piece, and both sides are doing it. The Democrats could be able to come a little bit closer to this president on this, but they don't want to do it because this is Trump's big, beautiful.
But I think the big issue for next week, and I think this will be interesting to see what happens, and you'll be reporting on it, I'm sure, is what about the Senate Republicans? Basically, I think Nancy Pelosi has to, for now, stick with the Democratic position and repass again the CR that the Senate voice voted.
Which had no money.
Which had no money. They may add some disaster relief and some things, but which had no money basically for the border wall. Trump will say unacceptable. The Senate Republicans are in the middle. And so far, over the first 2 years, the Senate Republicans have basically gone along with Donald Trump. I really think that's in question now. I just think if you're Mitch McConnell, given everything that's happened in the last couple of months, you start to think, I don't know, are we just going to stick with McConnell, with Trump on a government shutdown here that's unpopular? and that seems for a wall
Because they got burned
That
by him.
nobody wants. But nobody wants this wall. Well over 57%.
person does,
Except
Mom
Donald Trump. You're right. Donald
40%,
Trump wants it.
40%
But no,
of public does.
57%. But
That's not nothing.
But
It's not the majority, but it's
57%
not
of people
nothing.
polled via an NPR PBS NewsHour poll 2 to 3 weeks ago said they did not support shutting down the government over this border wall. And so no one wants the government shut down over this wall. So I thought this Washington Post op-ed was really like, okay? Because there's no incentive for Democrats to cave to Donald Trump. He's throwing a temper tantrum. And if you give in to the bully, if you give in to the temper tantrum, you have to give in every single time after that. No give.
That's the key. It just can't be about the wall. And that's why I want to keep coming back to Congress and President. Do your job. Comprehensive immigration reform. Let's find a fix for DACA, and let's do the right thing on our border.
Unfortunately, we've been watching that since
I know.
I started covering Washington.